you need to be able to count. A translation is just a slide. So let's talk reflect. What's a one-word definition of a reflect? Triana? Mirror. What's another? What, Anshuman? Flip. Good. What's the skill set you need to reflect? What's the skill of reflecting? You need to count. This tricky part about reflection is if it says x equals and then a number, or y equals and a number. If it says reflect it over x equals 3, you have to draw in that line, right? And if it says reflect over y equals -2, you have to sometimes draw in that line. So that's the tricky part about reflections. You have to be able to tell where this line goes. So if you have a graph and you have a picture and it says reflect over x equals 3, you go where x equals 3, 1, 2, 3, and you draw the line there, and that's your reflection line. If it says y equals -2, you go where y is -2 and draw your line, and that's your reflection line. So sometimes you have to draw in the line. It may say reflected over the x-axis, that's easy. But if it tells you a specific line, you have to go in and draw that in. Rotation was the most difficult because you had to memorize the rules. In rotations, you had to be able to tell the difference between clockwise and counterclockwise. Which way is clockwise?
The way that a clock goes.
The way a clock goes. Clockwise goes like this. To the right. Counterclockwise goes the other way to the left. You have to know the difference between clockwise and counterclockwise. We just wrote it down. Clockwise is to the right, counterclockwise is to the left. So now let's write our rules. We have a 90-degree clockwise rotation. 90-degree clockwise rotation. Step 1 was to flip-flop the X and Y. Flip-flop the X and Y. And change the what? Y value. 90-degree clockwise, you take your ordered pair and you flip-flop it. Gentlemen. And then you change the Y value. If it's positive, you make it negative. If it's negative, you make it positive. That's it. 90-degree counter clockwise. Flip-flop the X and Y. Start out the same way. But you change the X value. And then there was one more type of rotation. 180 degrees. Does it have clockwise or counterclockwise? No, it's just 180. And there's no flip-flopping with the 180. You just change the X value and you change the Y value. Rotations are the hardest because there are so many rules and you just have to memorize the rules. So then we go to dilation. And a dilation, the skill set for dilations is you have to be able to count. And a dilation, what does a dilation do to your shape? It changes the size. It enlarges. What does enlarge mean?
Make it bigger.
Make it bigger. Or it reduces. It makes it smaller. It changes the size. A dilation makes it bigger or shrinks it and makes it smaller. A dilation enlarges or reduces a shape. Dilations make similar figures. What does it mean to have a similar figure? What does similar mean? Are they 100% the same? They look the same, but one's bigger or smaller. They look the same, but one's bigger and one's smaller. They're called similar. Dilations make similar figures. Right? Similar figures have different heights and widths, but they're the same shape. The shape, the idea of it stays the same, but it changes the way it looks. It's bigger or smaller. When you translate something or reflect something or rotate something, does the shape change? No, just the location. So translate, reflect, and rotate. I'll write this down here. Translate, reflect, and rotate make what are called congruent shapes. They are the same. Congruent shapes are exactly the same. But in a different location. Congruent shapes are exactly the same, they're just in a different location. Translating makes congruent shapes. The shape doesn't change, its location changes. Reflecting makes congruent shapes. The shape doesn't change, just its location changes. And rotating makes congruent shapes. The shape doesn't change, just where it's located changes. Dilation makes the same shape, but the height and width are different. It enlarges it or shrinks it. Dilation makes similar figures. They're not exactly the same. They're close. It's just increased or decreased.